All right. Welcome, everybody, to our webinar today. We'll give it another 30, 40 seconds here to get everybody in and loaded, and we start our conversation. How's the weather? You're in New York, right, Gideon?
Yes, it is super cold, although I can't really say because I ran on the treadmill and have not been outside, but it has been cold and snowy for seemingly months on end here.
And Carrie, are you in Florida?
I am. I'm here on the
Okay.
Southwest Gulf Coast, although I did wake up this morning and it was like 37. So we are in the middle of our winter right
Now
now.
for Florida, that's like -20.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough for you all.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I think we're up to 30 degrees today here in the Pacific Northwest. We got some snow, though. We haven't had any snow all year. So, a little bit of snow. We're happy about that. Hey, everybody, we just launched a poll question that we would love to get your feedback, and we'll revisit this in a couple minutes. And it'll kind of guide a little bit of our conversation today. So, jump into that poll and answer that, and we'll come back to it in a few minutes and discuss the results. But let's get it started. Hopefully, you're in the right place. If you wanted to learn how to build a winning advisor and attorney estate planning model for your firm, that's what we're going to talk about with Drucker Wealth. Excited for this conversation. We have some great expertise on this call. My name is Matt Morris. I'm the CEO of EncorEstate Plans. On my team, we have Daniel Michelson, who plays a bunch of roles and wears a number of hats at Encore. He's a California estate planning attorney. And we have Gideon Drucker, who is the CEO of Drucker Wealth. And we're going to hear a lot from him on his vision for what he's created in partnering and bringing in Carrie, who is a Florida estate planning attorney. And so we're going to have a great conversation. Daniel and Carrie will talk a lot. There'll be the estate planning geeks. And if that's okay, if I call you guys geeks, is all right?
It's a term of endearment.
Yeah, it's intended that way. So good. I'm glad you're okay with that. And Gideon and I will talk a little bit from the vision and where our industry is going and the importance of of incorporating estate planning overall. Our agenda is I talk a little bit agenda, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what Drucker has built from a client experience here and really the future of estate planning from Carrie's perspective, that she joined a wealth management firm from a background as an estate planning attorney, which is fascinating, and how really to serve clients well and what issues can be solved for when an estate planning experience is brought into a wealth management firm. We'll talk through and get the feedback on their thoughts of that, workflows they put into place, how to build this client experience. We would love to have Q&A all the way throughout. And so don't hesitate. If you can use the Q&A button, that'll help. Sometimes the chat questions get buried quickly. We'll try to answer questions live. Some of them we'll answer directly with you there. We have a team behind the scenes that can answer questions. And so look forward to having lots of back and forth with you as we go. And we'll finish up with closing out and have some goodies for you here at the end. We'll discuss. For many of you, I know we have a lot of Encore users on the call today that are excited to hear of what Gideon and Carrie have put in place within their firm. But we have some people who've not heard of Encore and aren't familiar. So I want to take like 2 minutes here and just give you the 30,000 foot view of what Encore does. And in context of what Carrie and Gideon will be talking about, Encore really exists to be able to empower the financial advisor to deliver the best estate planning client experience that helps estate plans get completed and ends procrastination and funded. And so we do a number of things from existing estate plans, visual summaries. We help create new wills and trusts and restatements of wills and trusts. We do powers only plans. We do deed filing to ensure trusts get funded. And we digitize the experience, leveraging software and human components so that the ability to amend and keep plans up to date over time can be implemented within a wealth management firm, and avoiding unauthorized practice of law, which is something we'll talk about today in Carrie's context as well. We're unique in a few different areas. We're a software, but we're the only software that actually involves humans in the process of the client getting their documents done. We have 2 levels of human review on every plan. That enables a lot of customization that goes beyond what typical software platforms can do. We allow you as the advisor to facilitate the process for the client and drive that. And we're unique in our funding capabilities that we can make sure properties are funded into the trust within our experience, which is a huge differentiator. And lastly, we've partnered with a nationwide network of attorneys, and where clients want to have an attorney review their documents from a state-specific attorney engagement, that's available throughout our process. Lastly, we're pay-as-you-go pricing. We charge $150 for plan summaries, $650 for trust-based estate plans with all those documents, $400 for wills. Once it's digitized in our platform, we can amend those documents going forward for just a cost of $150. And then we do deed filing for $300 across most of the country. We include the recording fees. So in some states, that fee may be a little bit different. But I'm going to stop there with talking about Encore. That was the high level. And actually, Victor, can you finish our poll here and we can show up the results? So the biggest estate planning pain, according to all of you, helping clients overcome procrastination by a pretty good majority here at 74%. Little no access to estate planning attorneys, 14%. Helping clients fund is maybe the loser here.
A landslide.
Retitling their home. Yeah, exactly. And notaries to complete signing documents right in there too. So interesting. Hopefully you can see that on your screens, right, Gideon, Carrie?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So good stuff. This is what a lot of our time is going to be talking about, how you guys went after solving this procrastination issue that we all know too well. So Gideon, I want to throw it to you and share what it is about your view of the industry, where we're going, what the future is, that made you prioritize we need an estate planning solution and looking and bringing somebody like Carrie into your firm.
Yeah, absolutely. So my view of the industry, I'll focus maybe our view of Drucker Wealth and what we're trying to do for clients, but obviously the two are related. I go back to every study of advisor fees, right? Everybody's been talking about fee compression, seemingly, and I know Michael Kitces talks about this all the time, for like 25 years, right? Fees are coming down. And I think all the studies that I've seen, that I've heard about, are actually, they really haven't, like not by a basis point. It's basically 1% on $1 million is still the average fee. But as you know, any advisor knows, what has changed is how much you have to do to warrant that fee. As you know, investments have been more commoditized, and even financial planning to a degree. I was looking ahead, and I started about 7-8 years ago, of saying where the industry is going is, to be a financial planner, you really do have to get involved in tax planning and tax preparation, which is actually something we just started this year with estate planning, of just doing a lot more for the same fees, right? Which is fee compression of a different sort, right? And that what it takes to actually do that. And estate planning just seemed like a really clear way of providing value to clients. And that's really how we see it. We work mostly with high income earning families, mid-career professionals, we call it, that are in their 40s. They make north of $250,000. They usually have kids under college age. And I do a lot of our what we call right fit calls, where first people reaching out from my book, a blog, what have you. And I always ask, do you have estate planning documents? And I've done hundreds, if not more, of these calls. And the number one thing you hear is, oh yeah, estate planning, that's next on my list. I've wanted to do that forever. I've actually wanted to do that since my kids were born. And in my head, I'm thinking, didn't you just say your daughter's going to high school in a year? Like, it's been 15 years of waiting to get this done. So it just, for industry reasons and the firm we want to build, of that one-stop shop, of being able to provide value for everything we're doing, and then just seeing it as one of those things that people don't think about. It stresses them out. I think the procrastination, that it was no surprise Carrie and I were nodding along to that. You know, and what's interesting is the fee, or the cost of it, wasn't even an option. And I wouldn't think for most of our clients that would be anywhere near the top either. So for all those reasons, I think being able to provide this is where the industry is going, of really becoming that one-stop shop and being able to do more for your clients.
Yeah, I've heard it described pretty commonly. I've said it myself as kind of the family office for the mass affluent.
Exactly. Yeah.
What is going to allow you to continue to avoid any concern or at all around fee compression. You're delivering more value than ever. So tell me about how you decided to look for a role and look for a Carrie to bring into your firm, and how you wanted to think about the experience you're giving to your clients and prospects.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, and I said this even when I speak to advisors individually, is I don't look at it as, hey, we need to do a certain number of plans to validate the investment or the cost of Encore, or the cost of the team we're building out. It's, if you're a growth oriented advisor, right? Like you are growing organically, you're focused on continuing to do so for the long term. I really view it as another arrow in our quiver. It's another thing that when a client needs help, we're there to take care of it. And I start with that. It's not exactly an answer to the question, but I think if we were looking at it purely in, all right, how many plans did we do this week? And that determines the capability, then not that it wouldn't work, but it would just, I think it would be thinking about it backwards. We're thinking about it. We know exactly who our clientele is, who we're working with, who are the best fit for. And to be able to have just another thing that we do, and not everybody needs it on day one, but I view the estate planning process and relationship, and this ties into why we're so lucky to have Carrie, is it's not just, oh, well, the clients that need an estate plan and need new documents, this works for them. We're thinking about this. Our job is to help educate our clients, guide them around estate planning at a high level. Before we even talk about a platform, documents, it's, hey, how are your beneficiaries set up? Your accounts titled? When you hear estate planning, what does that even mean to you? Like, to the client, is that stressful? Have you thought about it, in terms of your kids? So it's having that conversation, and we have that with every single new client. Some clients don't have documents, or they've had 4 kids since they set up their documents. And then that conversation will naturally morph into, hey, you might need estate planning documents. We have a path for that. But sometimes it's not. And I don't consider that like, oh, damn, they don't need estate planning documents. I view that as, wow, we provided incredible value through Carrie's guidance, through us talking about it and having conversations. And then we're also really, and this is really cool to me, we're able to close the loop for those clients who do need documents. And we, no matter how the conversation goes, we're able to get them to the end of the process. And that's really cool. And that's why it was a no-brainer. We're not a law firm. We don't practice law. Carrie doesn't at Drucker Wealth either, but having an expert to avoid making the big mistake, to guide clients, or even just to say, hey, let's wave the flag. We need to make a change. We need to make a pivot. For us, it was a no-brainer. This is something we want to have experts in everything that we say that we do, rather than one advisor flying back and forth being the tax expert, the estate, the investment, the financial planning. I don't think that works in the long run.
Yeah, great insight. The issue as well for you, talk about where your clients are located, and maybe what was broken about what you had been doing previously. You mentioned the procrastination. Even if you had great local attorneys for your local clients, you guys are spread out with your client base. Tell us more about that and the problems when you also had clients all over the nation prior to implementing this.
We're a virtual firm. We have clients, as you said, all around the country. I'm located in New York, Florida. Our tax team is based in California. And I think part of it too, and it's not just the virtual, but it's that if you have an advisor and a separate tax person, a separate estate, they're not part of the same firm, they don't speak to each other. If procrastination is the hardest part, getting clients to do something, and especially clients around the country that have kids and ball games and dance recitals and 2 working parents and a million things going on. If the advisor's reaching out, hey, we need to do your backdoor Roth, their separate estate attorney, hey, we need to draft the documents, the tax team, hey, did you send us those 1099s? Like, it's a lot of people that you have, the client becomes the central person in that. And aren't they hiring a financial planning team to not have to be the central person? So I think having the estate planning in-house, or not all the time, right? Sometimes we are bringing in outside attorneys, but it all flows from Drucker Wealth, and we get to be that central point of contact of, hey, you know what? Maybe let's not reach out about their backdoor Roth this week because Carrie's in the middle of the estate planning process, and like, we want to get that done by Friday. If you give somebody 10 things to do, they're not going to get done any. You give them 2, 2 will be done and you can move on. And I think that is even more important when you're virtual, you're working over Zoom, and relationships are all over the country.
Yeah, totally. Well, cool. Let's throw it over to the attorneys on our call. And so, Daniel, let's let you dive in with Carrie on how you guys approach what you've built there.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. It's been fun working with Carrie, and like many of you on the call, you might see a shift in our space where this is a really common trend going on. It's fun working with Gideon and Carrie, who have been very forward thinking, where they're a little ahead of most other firms and groups that we're talking about. But this is a change in our industry. And Gideon, you talking a lot about where all of the hats that your firm wears for clients, how spread out they are. There's just this need for a client to be able to get to the end goal, which for a financial plan is incorporating that estate plan. So, Carrie, for you, will you just give us a little bit of your background and how we ended up working with Gideon over at Drucker Wealth?
Yeah, of course. I've been practicing estate planning and probate trust administration attorney for about 17 years here, all in the same place here in Southwest Florida. And I really loved my practice. I loved the firm I was with. I had a great boss, I had great staff, everything was really good. But I was noticing over those years that I was coming up and realizing that I was enjoying maybe one part more than the others. And it really was the planning part, the estate planning. And I think that is one reason is because clients were happier on the estate planning part because they felt like I was giving them value. I was doing something, helping to solve an issue or helping them plan for incapacity or preserve their legacy in some way. And on the administration side, I was more of a roadblock for beneficiaries to get their inheritance. Just from a personal, I like this better than that part of my practice, I can understand why I gravitated toward the planning side. And so the planning part has always appealed to me. And I think it's pretty obvious to estate planners in general that there's a gap in between getting the best estate planning documents together and working with the best attorneys and then making that dovetail with the rest of a plan, financial plan, tax planning. And I saw that in my own practice, and there really wasn't a perfect solution other than to be close with other financial advisors, CPAs, work those types of COI relationships to help provide better services for the clients. But it was never perfect. I mean, when an estate planning attorney has a transactional type of relationship, clients come in, do estate planning documents, and then they're gone, and I may never see them again. They may be frequent flyers, but generally the relationship is not quite the same as a financial advisor might have, where you are actually building out life plans that are meant to incorporate everything and to stay long term. So for me personally, I was looking for more of that cohesive planning and being able to come in to Drucker Wealth and match that all up and to let our clients know that, yes, we do think it's important for everything to be part of the plan was one of the reasons. And I was looking for an opportunity just like this that came up for us. And it was just the right time for me personally and professionally to make that move.
Yeah, and will you just give, I don't know the full mix, but I assume most people that are listening to this call have never been an attorney or sat as an estate planning attorney doing planning, probate work, trust administration. Will you give us an idea of on the attorney front, right? Because I know a lot of your friends, my friends sit in those law firms doing planning in addition to other things. What does a process look like for a law firm that is doing estate planning? So what I'm interested in is, one, what's the high level process of that? But where are clients coming from there? Are you often working with a financial advisor, or is it just go? Because that's, I think, the disconnect here is from a law firm's perspective, it's not that they always have a financial advisor. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. There's a lot of handoffs along that pathway. Will you just give us an idea of what it feels like from the law firm side as we pivot into talking about estate planning through the Drucker Wealth component?
Sure. And I think, as I touched on earlier, it certainly seems to be more transactional. It's not that the estate planning in the legal world isn't comprehensive, because I was gathering client information, everything that we have as a financial advising firm, the information we have, I wanted that information too. I needed it in order to get a complete picture. So there is a lengthier, in-depth information gathering so that the planner, the estate planning attorney, can see everything that's going on to properly advise, obviously. And then there's the client conversations. And that is, for me, it was a lot of asking the client what they wanted and then directing them how to get there, because I'm not expecting clients to come in and say, I want this kind of trust and I need this. And they were giving me broad ideas. They would give broad ideas and I would figure out how to get them there. Sometimes it was complex. A lot of times it was non-complex, helping to establish the plan itself. And then, of course, creating the documents, drafting the documents, review of the documents, the ideas behind what the documents meant, particular circumstances for each family, reviewing all of those. And then it was generally, for me, it was wrapping up that engagement and providing the client with educational materials and instructions for further funding and things to pay attention to in the future, getting married, getting divorced, moving states, providing them with that information. But at least in my firm, it wasn't something that we actively then reached out to clients further along the line to see, hey, did you move? Did you do something? We really weren't maybe going to know that. I would assume a lot of estate planning attorneys have the same kind of relationship, and it passed on to the client the responsibility of effectuating this plan that legally probably very sound, hopefully, but in practice, maybe leaving the client a little out of sorts.
Yeah.
I know that there are some law firms that are doing, I've seen things like ongoing care teams that do work to do that, and they charge additional fees or however subscriptions or something like that. And I think that's similar in something that we're trying to provide all under one house, that type of monitoring.
We'll get into it in a few minutes from now, kind of more of the workflow and operational side. But looking at that, right, we just talked about, from a law firm perspective, we talked with Gideon about all these hats that are being worn here. What has been your experience of the difference at this point when you're inside of the wealth management firm where all of these are in court? What are you seeing right now on the ground?
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing certainly the opportunity to make the plan work like 100%, because here the financial advisor has this ongoing relationship, hopefully ongoing decades-long relationship where we are involved in every aspect of the client's financial life. And that's really what I'm seeing from a client perspective, is getting them just the ability to have somebody looking over all of it.
Yeah.
And that was just the cohesiveness just isn't there in a typical attorney, maybe financial planning relationship. So
yeah, just to jump in, because actually what Carrie said that before resonated of why we went down this path in the first place, which is, you mentioned the transactional nature of, you're doing documents, maybe you see them again, maybe you don't. I think some of my frustration, like before we went down this path, was we would introduce clients to an estate attorney, or they had one, and like we really want to like monitor it for no other reason than we think that's part of our job, is to make sure the client isn't confused by their estate plan, by what's happening. You reach out to the attorney, and I understand it's a different system. They did this plan 6 months ago. They had 20 new clients. There's not an ongoing retainer, any type of relationship. Meanwhile, we've been working with them for 5 years, and no matter what happens in their estate plan, we are going to be the firm that, hey, oh, I didn't have this, I didn't have that. We are responsible. I don't mean legally we're not who drafted it, but we know we're going to be there at the end of that relationship. And I think we kept bumping up against, and it's a similar idea in our mind on the tax side of, hey, we're asking tax questions. You know what? At a certain point, if you think you can build it, it's just better. I'd rather be responsible for building something great in-house than relying on people outside of our ecosystem that aren't on the same page, that aren't working together. And I think you have enough of those conversations. And even at the start, I said, hey, I don't really know exactly what this is going to look like, but I feel like we have to do it differently if I'm going to enjoy doing this for the next decade, 2 decades.
And yeah, thanks for adding that in, because I think coming into this conversation is the question in everybody's mind, which is, we're talking about procrastination, but at the end, what is our goal? What are we working towards? And it's not the goal of saying advisors are better suited to do an estate plan. It's, there's a problem that exists, which is most people don't have an estate plan done. And now we have to look at that, and there's only 2 answers. And I know, Carrie, we've talked about this a lot. There's a lot probably listening that have seen LinkedIn things all over the place talking about it, where if someone doesn't have an estate plan, what is our answer? And is the answer just, you need to go talk to an attorney and get that done? And sometimes that might be the case. And I think from Encore, we're always going to say the best solution is an attorney and an advisor working hand in hand and completing everything, right? Because from us, we talk about estate planning as create your documents, fund your documents, notify and educate everybody named in those. And a lot of times you need the advisor involved in that, even if it's an attorney doing all the work. But if we look at the problem of no estate plan being done, well, what are we going to do with the mass affluent, the bottom half of the country, which is millions and millions of people who, it's the common family, right? I have a couple kids, maybe I own a home, and I have a 401k. And yeah, my advisor is there, but more people have an advisor than an attorney. And I think that's the question we're all wrestling with. And Carrie, I'd love you to expand on that of going, we've talked about it a little at the beginning. If it's not the greatest solution, is this second best? Is it just good enough? Just talk through your mindset of going into, if we're taking out them going to a lawyer's office and doing it, and we're utilizing something like Encore to get those documents done, where does that fit in like a scale of getting it done perfectly versus not done at all?
Right, right. This is going to go to some of what we will talk about as far as workflow and getting it in for what we would hope is 100% of our clients on to get an estate plan together. But the reality is you do have an estate plan. Even if you don't have any documents, you do have an estate plan. And so when we're trying to get people to review what they have in place, educate them as to what can happen if they were to pass away prematurely, you know, anything like that, we want to identify where maybe the non-complex situations are that we can help address within Drucker Wealth. And so one of the things I do as the estate planning specialist is to spot issues, and how my experience as an estate planning attorney allows me to do that and say, okay, this is something where I hate to call anybody simple. I usually tell everybody, you're not simple, you're non-complex. If 80% of people fit into this non-complex, where you're right, they have their kids, they've got their home. I mean, on the financial side, there's a lot going on. There's college planning, there's tax loss harvesting, there's maybe they've got RSUs. There's a lot going on the financial services side, but they might not really think there's much to do on the estate planning side. But the reality is that if all of that other work that the investment advisor is doing to build a legacy is wasted if we haven't planned for what to do with the legacy. But again, if it's non-complex and we have these options now for us to have that solution, like EncorEstate plans, to have a solution where we can provide the education and information and platform for them, for clients to put something together that's at least going to help answer the two big questions I say. Where are things going to go? And who's going to be in charge? I mean, I like to break down the overall estate plan to those two questions to make it seem a little bit easier to approach. But when we can answer that first question and it doesn't involve a lot of complexity, we don't have a federally taxable estate, we're not trying to disinherit children, we've got some things where we're not reinventing the wheel, then having a solution like EncorEstate plans is perfect, because that is going to fit many of our clients. You know, I'm issue spotting though, so I'm also paying attention to clients where it's not going to be appropriate. Anytime there's any type of, somebody says something, well, I don't want my spouse to receive something. We're not messing with that. You know, you need to talk with an attorney who can help explain further, obviously. So I'm able to weed through some of what clients might say or think is important in this conversation and pick that out, hopefully fairly quickly, but just to establish whether we're going to be able to continue on the Drucker Wealth side, or there's going to need to be further legal advice. And having the option, even through EncorEstate plans, to have an attorney referral network is important too, because I mean, I've got lots of contacts here in Florida, but I don't know everybody in all 50 states, you know. I know sometimes where to look, but so having the ability to say, okay, I can't answer these questions, I can't give you the advice that you need, but let's get you connected with our partner who's going to be able to help. And then again, it's still all coming basically through me, through Drucker Wealth, through my team. So it's still being cohesive, but it's solving the question for the people who maybe aren't in that 80 or so % of non-complex plans.
Yeah, thanks for the context. And we'll shift over to some of the operational side, but just for people listening, right? There, where we're talking, Carrie just shared a good idea of the 80%, right? Not the simple, but the not complex. Well, where Encore views this is there's really three ways advisors are utilizing Encore through the system, where they're collecting the data from the end client, we're able to provide documents. But there's going to be clients who are stickier, who want an attorney stamp of approval, or maybe a quick conversation, right? They own a business, they're not exactly sure, and you don't want to provide legal advice, they need someone to step in. Encore has attorney reviews, where these are law firms that don't work for Encore. We don't split fees with them. We don't do referral fees with them. They're purely law firms on their own in any individual state, where Carrie, working with the client, can go, hey, this client's just going to want a quick call about that, and I know it's going to stem into legal advice. I'm going to go ahead and schedule that. A few $100 more, they can still get the documents set up and have that attorney step in. Or for cases like Carrie, where she just talked about, not giving money to a spouse or disinheriting a child. Encore has questions that pop up when you start a plan to disqualify, but there's other things where we can just refer that directly to an attorney. So whether we're completing the whole plan inside of Encore, we're doing most of it with an attorney stepping in, almost like a hybrid version, or just outsourcing it directly, it's now you, the advisor, who's still the champion, the quarterback of that, because you're the relationship owner, right? Where Gideon can step into this and he can bring Carrie in for the estate plan. He can bring other team members in for tax planning. He can build the financial plan. This is just one area to just cement that relationship internally. Pivoting a little bit here, Carrie, will you talk to me about probably what everyone is thinking about from a legal perspective of how do you set up these calls, right? You're starting a relationship, and maybe Gideon, if you want to prep that as we get into Carrie of this UPL conversation. So if we're going to start, Carrie, yes, you're an attorney from Florida, but you don't operate in any legal capacity for Drucker. So how does that work internally for you?
Yeah, I'll start just because, quite frankly, the initial conversation does start with myself or other lead advisors and then funnels to Carrie. Every new client that we work with at Drucker Wealth, we do, and I'll keep this short, we do what we call a financial life plan, but it's basically a 2-month engagement. We walk through every aspect of their financial world. And we want to bring in, we have a lead advisor, but we want to bring in the tax team as relevant. And, we've made changes along the way. Carrie and I both know we have to be super flexible as we're incorporating new systems, technology into everything we do. But Carrie actually now meets with the client as part of that initial engagement. Purely that first thing I said of, it's a high level overview, education, understanding. What are your estate planning goals? Have you spent? That could be an interesting question for clients. I'm supposed to have estate planning goal. Like, what does that even mean? What do I want my estate plan to look like? But just to kind of unpack. And I always start from the very first call we have with clients. Obviously we're not a law firm. Carrie's not practicing law. We do have an avenue that can help. Carrie said the 80%, and I tend to use examples of we will absolutely bring in an attorney if we think it doesn't make sense to use the platform. And I really want to make it clear that Carrie's role is to help figure out what makes the most sense to get your estate planning documents done, whether that involves us directly or us outsourcing and then coming back around. But we incorporate that into every plan. And then for existing clients, because obviously we have a lot of wealth management existing clients from before we were using Encore, that Carrie used the term, and I think it's great, issue spotting. I think that's a big part of the lead advisor's role at a helicopter view, right? If we're having a review meeting and we're looking, hey, they don't have estate planning documents, or they just had another child and their beneficiaries haven't been updated. Us being able to look at that and say, you know what, we need to pivot the conversation, set up another call, and just, hey, we think it's really important. We now have Carrie on the team. We want to make sure you have your estate planning documents set up, that you understand how it all fits. All I'm suggesting, we're going to bring in Carrie for a 15, 20-minute intro meeting. We're not setting up documents. You're not paying a fee. We're not up to that. We're really just going to help you understand avenues you have, right? What are your options? What's important to you? And I know Carrie's going to do a great job of kind of presenting the client where they stand, where they're going. Sometimes that'll inevitably or naturally move into the estate planning Encore workflow. And we do charge a fee, and I can explain how we think through all of that, but we can walk through what the fee is, the process. The clients sometimes say, yeah, this is important, but honestly, I'm not going to do this. For 3 months, I'm getting killed at work. Like, I don't have time. And then we'll say, no problem. Carrie will reach out in the spring. We know it's important. We're going to put this. And all of a sudden, something we spoke about for 15 minutes is now part of our financial plan, right? And we at least have an action item involving Carrie, follow up, and we can incorporate that into everything we're doing. And then it moves into Carrie's world. And now they're on her plate, they're on her list, and we can be proactive and persistent. As we all know, like the procrastination answer, we need to be, but we can do so in a smart way rather than just like guessing or randomly throwing stuff out there.
Yeah, and pivoting to you, Carrie, because I know this is not coming to a client saying, would you like to buy a will or a trust, right? This is not that conversation. And so as you're joining those introductory calls and you're moving into that sense, I know that we have disclosures, obviously, but will you just talk about what does that look like to you in your mind of setting that stage to the client once that initial pivot has been made from the lead advisor?
Right. So in the early stages or the beginning stages of the financial life plan, when we're getting information into the inputs, that's when my first contact with the client happens. And I'm always, one of the things I'll say right off the bat, I am a lawyer. I am not your lawyer. I make that clear. We're recording everything so that they do know that I'm not acting as their attorney. And then I explain my role to them as, one, just an issue spotter, two, an educator. I want to help educate them because lots of people, the procrastination part of it is because anytime you don't know what you're getting into, that's what causes the procrastination. You're scared. It's a little bit of fear.
Yeah.
Estate planning is not people's favorite thing to talk about. They don't want to talk about what happens if they're not around to take care of their own children, So all of those things we build into the plan, and they need to talk about it because I'm there and I'm asking these types of questions. But I'm careful to let them know I'm not a lawyer. I do talk about what I can do, and especially in that beginning part. My job there is just to, again, educate, help answer questions. Maybe they don't even know what a will versus a trust is, those sorts of things. So I do that educational part, and then I dovetail it with the financial plan and say, one of the things we're trying to make sure is that you have everything in order, because you can have all of the finances look great and you got 100% on your Monte Carlo, you're going to be successful and retire with millions of dollars. But we want to make sure that that's got somewhere to go and that your plan isn't messed up because of inadvertent beneficiary designations or something like that. So even at the outset, I'm helping to review those with clients. I mean, we pull in life insurance beneficiaries, 401k beneficiaries, and those aren't always easy to find on those statements. So clients a lot of times are searching for that, and I'm getting really good at figuring out where they are. But to make sure that we're gathering all that information to give them value within this financial life plan that we're designing, that the advisors are designing. And so I try in that initial part just to be a source of education. If they already have estate planning documents, then great. Then I'm going to want to look at them so that I can make sure, again, that their estate plan doesn't say one thing and they're telling me it says something else, because that does happen too,
Yeah.
So it's just a set of eyes to look over everything that they have in the estate planning world to provide that guidance as the financial life plan continues. And we sort of make it part of the process so that they don't really have a choice. Like I was saying, they're not going to get to procrastinate because we're doing it. And sometimes getting the ball rolling is the hardest part. And in my practice, I had 90-year-olds that came in and said, well, it's probably time, never had anything. And I'm like, yes, let's get that done tomorrow.
And I know you, similar to me, from an attorney side, I've been called into ICUs, right? People they always think there's more time, right? They always think that there's tomorrow. And that's life insurance, right? That's why there's so many of these things that we just don't know. With you and your operational side of it, so we've set the expectation to clients, because I know, Matt will talk more about different processes here, but for you, are you just sending a questionnaire to a client's filling out everything and they handle it? Are you on a Zoom call? Like, what does that actually look like to collect information to enter into the Encore platform?
Okay, so when we have the clients that are ready to proceed and we're going to be utilizing EncorEstate plans, I use the information that EncorEstate plans provides. I like to rely on that because then it's not something that I'm creating, further pushing me into, is this a gray area where I'm influencing something or trying to make the client think I'm suggesting something that I'm not or that I can't.
Yeah.
So I do rely on the EncorEstate plans questionnaires, and I send those out, and I do ask the clients to fill them out. We may have some of the information already, but I say I want this in this format for compliance purposes and for my process to have that as client led or client filled out. So that's their words and their information. So that's one thing that I do keep separate. I already know their name and address. I have all that, but I want them to put that in so that it's in that format. And then I ask them to send that in and I review it just to see if there's anything in there that pops out that, again, is unusual or something where I'm going to say, okay, they're asking a question about why would I want to extend a trust for my child until they're 50, something like that. Okay, so I can pull together other educational information and say, this is why this might be done in certain situations. And these are things that happen on pros and cons or something like that, so that I can help explain that. And then we have a meeting. I call it the input review meeting, basically. And we go over the form. So the questionnaires, I have all clients do the healthcare wishes form as well, just because even if they're not going to be very specific. I need to be able to put that into the software. So I have them do that as well. And then we talk about the actual documents, more education on what are these documents? What's the goal of having these documents? And how are you going to utilize them? And then there's other questions that come up that are just, where are we going to put them? Or how are we going to get them signed? Or how do we make changes? So some of the process stuff comes after that. And then once I'm clear that I've got the information I need for the software inputs, I do it. And I do the advisor led, which means that I'm the one doing the inputs basically and communicating with EncorEstate through the support chat or through emails so that I'm driving it, because leaving it to the client is that it's my job to do it. It's not really their job to do it. They're not getting paid by somebody to do it, but I am. So that's helping move things forward as far as overcoming that inertia for the client.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. I'm going to do a quick little what I think I heard from you to make sure, and then bring it back to Matt. But hearing what you're talking about is it's coming from the advisor side. I know that you were hired in just to handle, you're not building all the financial plans. You're not doing that, but you're collecting information. The questionnaires that you're talking about, Encore has ones for trust-based, will-based, married, single. It's catered to what the client situation is. They're filling that out, and then you're confirming that information. But the questions along the way, Encore has hundreds of resources in our knowledge base for any question client scenario. And if you're not stepping in to answer that for them and say, do this, but they're going, per Stirpes lapse, I don't know how to answer that one, you go ahead and pull in and say, well, here's what both of them mean so that you can make the decision for your firm. So, and then entering the data in, just to be clear, this is not a link that gets sent out to a client that they fill in all the information and then you're just have the status bar waiting for the plan to get completed. This is you're sitting there, you have the login with Encore, which for anyone who doesn't know or hasn't experienced Encore, you can go to our website, create an account for free. There's no contract to sign, no credit card to add in. All of those resources Carrie's mentioned, they're free resources. You can white label them to your own firm. That's what we've gone through to cultivate all of this information. So just that's your quarterbacking that of providing the relevant information, going, hey, this is popping up that maybe we need to bring in counsel for this there. I know that it's of course useful because of your background going through there, but what would you say, Carrie, for any firm that's watching this going, well, I don't have 15 years as an attorney. Do I have to have an attorney step in here? Or could my firm still be successful by adding this component in to quarterback that for our clients? How would you say for anyone who's watching that goes, there's 2 or 3 of us in the office and we have clients in 15 different states, right? There's 1,000 clients. What do we do in this? Mm-hmm. How would you say to address that?
Well, I think that I do feel like the estate planning component for Drucker Wealth and what Gideon has built for Drucker Wealth, it is a full-time job for me to do those sorts of things. The other firms maybe don't need to hire somebody like me as an attorney to come in and do that, but there does need to be processes. Everything is a process. And Encore allows, there's a dashboard that's going to show me where everybody is. There's so many ways of tracking client progress through whatever steps you have, whether that's your CRM workflows or that's within your actual planning software, whatever it is. There's lots of different ways to do it. But EncorEstate has the dashboard where I can easily see where everybody is. So tracking and processes was one of the biggest things that I started with when I came on board last March. It wasn't jumping in and leading clients into creating their estate plans. It was, okay, we need to get a hold and a handle on where is everybody? What do they have? What type of relationship do we have with them so that we can reach out at the correct time with them? So really putting in the processes is always, I think, the most important part. As far as having to have an attorney, you really don't because of the educational information. And I suppose it would just be to the point where an advisor would need to feel comfortable saying, I really can't answer that. And I know that is not a problem, but a lot of times advisors don't like to say that to their clients. If you're trying to bill yourself out as somebody who can help with everything, when you say, I can't do that, it goes against that messaging. But that is required because you've got to be able to understand where you can stop or where you need to stop as far as the advice on the estate planning. And so if having those educational materials to fall back on, and if you've reached the extent of providing that information, the client is continuing to have questions, well, then we know it's not something that's going to be easily handled.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's great insight on that piece. Thanks for speaking to that. In the last 10 minutes here, let's answer some of the questions that have been coming in. And Gideon, we've got it from Justin and Catherine, a few that on there's other options out there. And as I understand it, you guys started with another estate planning platform that was available for advisors. You've moved to Encore. Everybody's asking, why Encore? Why did you guys choose Encore from another platform?
Yeah, honestly, I sat next to Dan at a conference. I'd already finished my sandwich. He was still eating his, and I couldn't keep my mouth shut. So I was asking him questions, and he seemed like a nice guy. And I said, "What? No, I mean that actually is how it started, but it's a little bit more diligence than that." I think the biggest thing of what we were looking for, and that Encore provides, is the attorney. There's more checks and balances through attorney review. Right. The fact that the documents you guys are looking at them, the attorneys in the network for 5 days. We're not a law firm, and I'm cognizant of that. And we want to build this one-stop shop, but we want to be cognizant of what we don't do. And I really like that you guys seem to be, and have proven to be, yes, you're a platform, but you're not trying to ignore or weed out the attorney as part of it. In fact, you're building the platform with the intention that the attorney is involved at multiple steps throughout the way. And as, running all of this, but not being attorney myself, like the scariest part is, hey, are we walking too deep into something that we don't totally know? So the idea that there are more checks and balances, that it's going to take a little bit more time, even the idea that you're paying by the plan, right? And I'm not talking that it's economical, it's not, but there is something just inherently logical of we're paying when things get done. And for each plan, because each plan is valuable, the platform as itself is not the valuable piece. And I just think it checked a lot of boxes. It checked a lot of those boxes from my vantage point. And obviously, Carrie looked herself, and the documents themselves were great and matched what she needed. And I'll take it back, even because I wrote down a note. I think a lot of advisors don't get started down the path of an Encore or any of the platforms because it's all right. Well, that's way too different. I'm not even going to dip my toes in the sand, right? I'm just going to stay away. We only work with attorneys. And I think as an advisor, there's a lot of examples of things where you shouldn't even get involved in the first place. Like when we went independent as a firm, right? And for anybody that has, right, it's the broker dealer saying compliance and you're never going to be able. And I don't want to say it's fear monger, but there's a degree of you don't know what's on the other side until you do it and realize, yes, it's more work, right? Yes, you have to want to do it and be intentional, but you can do it. Same idea as starting a tax practice, a tax division. And same thing as we started going down this road. So to any advisor, I would say, one, use the platform for yourself, right? Instead of it being in the hypothetical of, well, I'm not an attorney, we don't have an attorney, so how are we going to be able to use this? Use the platform, walk up to the line and understand to be able to see the difference of education versus actually providing legal advice. And then once you do that, my opinion, yes, Encore is the right fit because there are so many of those extra, I keep saying checks and balances, attorneys review. It's built to go slow and methodical rather than, which is how we're trying to do this, rather than let's try to get 1,000 people through the platform as quick as possible. And that really resonated with me to make sure we're walking before we're running.
Yeah. Carrie, anything from your perspective to add there on the why Encore?
Having been an estate planning attorney, I will say that I used a software planning program for estate planning as an attorney. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So just put that out there. Obviously a lot different, but with the estate planning platform, and I saw there was a question pop up about the clients think about it being a platform or something. Not so much. They really are just wrapped up in getting something in place, honestly. With the estate planning platform, well, one of the things I can tell you from my perspective, and the clients really aren't interacting so much with Encore. And so I like that. I like to be the one that is leading the charge here. And that was a difference from the previous, what we were using previously, where it was more on the client. So that was really the biggest thing, because when I came in and I was trying to figure out our processes, the biggest bottleneck was just getting the client to move forward. And the poll showed that, and procrastination and this and that. So that was number one for me. The other is just in using it, that the support is excellent. There's the chat, there's email. It's really quick, and it's something that's helpful. Even when I think, gosh, I've been bothering them, I've asked them 5 questions today, it never made me feel that way. And it is extremely helpful when I'm trying to put the plans in place and I've got all these different things, moving parts on my end as well. So that the deed preparation was a big deal, because that's another bottleneck area where, funding the trust. Yeah, it's one thing to get the accounts properly titled, which is also sometimes difficult, but the real property, that was something where it was stalling before. So those are the three biggest things, just the fact that I get to make it happen. Support's great. The deed preparation is really the game changer as well.
Yeah. Another question we had from a couple of people too is pricing. And so Gideon or Carrie or whoever wants to answer this, kind of how are you guys doing that client by client and I'm not sure how you guys are approaching that.
Yeah. We charge a fee for us guiding a client through the process, right? It's time, it's Carrie's expertise, right? It's the follow-up. It's not too dissimilar. You're paying for accountability, right? To delegation. So we do charge a fee to do the estate plan. We've recently made a change. We only do the plans for clients that are going to become ongoing clients after the initial financial plan, which isn't really, 90% plus of people that we do a plan with end up becoming ongoing clients. I won't really say that's a huge distinction, but we do think that's important. And we charge a flat fee. It's on our website. We show it. I want all of our fees for anything we do on our website so people don't have to waste time. You save clients time and money, and then they have to call you to get their fees. And by definition, you're not saving them time. Always drives me crazy. Yeah. We charge, obviously it's not attorney fees, but it's worthwhile. And a part of that too is, you get things done when you're paying for it. And it's why I don't believe in the free financial plan. If you're putting time and money into it, you're going to be more committed to get it done. We charge $2,400 for a couple plan and $1,600 for an individual. Obviously that can change over time. That's kind of a sweet spot we found, makes sense. And when clients don't do the estate plan, it's never about pricing. It's, I have this other thing that's coming first. It's been a smooth transition of doing that, of getting them to commit. I think the amount of people, to the procrastination point, that if we weren't charging, that say, hey, I'll do the estate plan, send me the stuff. We would have 8,000 total. And it's not because they don't want to pay, it's that they want to pay when they're actually going to get it done. And that's when we want Carrie working with them and following up.
We have literally had a firm that said, we started charging our clients because when they pay a fee, they actually respond and they actually get through it faster. It takes longer when it's free because they don't have any skin in the game.
Right. They said and yes while they were doing 8 other things that they weren't really making a decision.
Yeah, we started charging a planning team and we get it done faster with the clients because they now have some skin in the game. And so fascinating that we've heard that recently. It actually goes faster for everybody and is a win here. So this is awesome. Thank you guys. We're super grateful for you guys coming in and sharing your experience. I hope this has been helpful to everybody listening. We want to just close it out here in the last couple of minutes and just say thank you to everybody attending. If you're interested in learning more about Encore, we didn't want to do a deep dive today. We wanted you to hear from Gideon and Carrie, primarily from their approach. We threw up a poll question. If you wanted to learn more and dive into Encore, yay or nay, feel free to answer that poll question. But we also wanted to give you the links. You can go to EncorEstateplans.com. You can create an account, or as Daniel explained, in 2 or 3 minutes. There's no cost to get in and create an account. You have access to all our resources and tools and training and how to get started from there. If you wanted a demo, talk to our team and dive a little bit deeper, you can book a demo from the website. What we're going to do is, for all of you on the site, if you haven't yet worked with Encore, the first 10 firms today that jump in and create their free account, we will send you a discount code and you can get 50% off your first plan. And so we probably have some procrastinator advisors on the phone on this call that haven't done their plan. We do a lot of advisors estate plans. And so that is a great way to dive in, or somebody on your team, take advantage. We'll give you 50% off that first plan. If you're one of the first 10, we'll send you a discount code for that creates your accounts today. So we'll finish up there. I see any more questions coming in. Yes, no required fee ongoing for Encore. You can white label your account if you'd like. Daniel, Vic, do I see any other questions? We get them all pretty much answered.
That's it. Other than advisors like Gideon are tough to get a hold of because they're so busy. But if you want to learn more from somebody who is like Gideon, who's so forward-thinking, growth-minded, I did just post a link to the Amazon link. We'll send it as a follow-up after this and all of our follow-ups as well. But he did just publish another new book here that is something that you should read to go through to understand how are we combining all of these things? How are clients thinking about it? Because we just talked all about from the advisor perspective, but what's the client perspective included in that? And estate planning, again, is just one part of that. Encore is fitting in to be you in the driver's seat. Instead of, it's not just a link. You're not buying a software with Encore as part of your tech stack. You're choosing something where you sit in. You don't pay anything except for when you pay for the plan. So do the financial plan, tax planning, estate planning. You're the quarterback in that. And go check out Gideon's book in order to understand how everything is combined there.
Yeah, Gideon and Carrie, thank you for just giving up your
thank you.
time
Thanks for sharing
to pass on your insights. Really appreciate that. Thrilled to be able to partner with you guys and continue to work with you in the future.
Yeah, us as well. Thanks for having us on.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Cool. Thanks,
Have a
guys.
great day.
Bye-bye.